you speak for me?
One, two, one,
Oh, that's
two.
perfect.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. My name is Elliott Morgan, and I'm here with Peter Rollins. Pete, I have spent in the past 2 weeks, I have done a wine tasting in Napa.
Oh, very nice.
I've attended the world's ugliest dog competition.
Who entered you?
Hmm?
Who entered you?
That's great. Uh, People should be making that joke more often about that. I've done Disneyland, California Adventure, Star Wars inside Disneyland, all these fun things. And that brings us to the topic of today's podcast, which is escapism. Now, here's the thing.
Your favorite pastime.
My favorite thing to do. The thing is, what is there to say about it? Everybody does some escapism every once in a while. We all have different forms. What do you make of it? What do you think? Are you pro escapism or are you pro anti-escapism?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when you brought, because this is one of your topics. You said this the other day. You said,
yeah,
Pete,
kinda,
yeah, and you said your two favorite escapisms, which we'll get into later. Which one is Vegas and one is Disneyland.
Yes.
They're two very kind of different feels to them.
You know, I had the thought when I was at Disneyland that, man, when I go to Vegas, it's like I act like a kid, and I'm here at Disneyland, and it's like I'm an adult amongst, children enjoying Disneyland, and two different experiences, but both have this sort of like you're in a bubble, like that's your world, and you get to do whatever you want and not think about anything, and be around a bunch of other people who are all trying to have fun in both scenarios. However, one seems a little bit purer than the other, and I think that's fun.
And is it the case that in both of them, if you spend more than like 3 days, you're gonna want to die?
Yeah, that is the case, and there's something there, right? That's something to talk about.
Yeah, because I was thinking that because they say that about Vegas, and it is true. When I've been to Vegas, kind of have a good time, but like by day 3, I'm like, I can't do it. And I think Disneyland's probably the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, if not more so. I mean, we stayed on property, and so it was a hotel that when you can exit from the hotel.
I was hoping you just hid somewhere. That would be brilliant. You hid in the Princess Castle.
We stayed in the castle, and it was wonderful. Yeah. And that place will never be the same again. It'll never be clean. But yeah, it was like you could leave the hotel and go out into the park, and whatever park you wanted to go into, and then come back to the hotel and chill for a second and go back in. But then you'd have to realize at some point that, you haven't seen or thought about the outside world in a very long time. And then I was walking down Main Street. Most people know this. I worked at Disney for quite a bit of time. As a young man, I was a friend of Goofy's. He's a good dude. I don't care what anybody says about him. He means well.
He's taking a lot of drugs by the seams of it. He seems like he's taking a lot of LSD.
That's why he can talk.
He's a little bit weird.
That's what taught him language.
Right.
That's why Pluto can't talk and Goofy can.
Was it serious drug abuse?
Serious drug abuse.
Okay, that's good
part, but that's okay. We support him anyway. Yeah, and so it got me thinking about the topic of escape, but I didn't think about it too much beyond it.
That's why you're throwing it over to me.
I
like that, which I'm very happy to say something.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, go talk.
Yeah,
I'll drink.
You got something? I'm gonna have this thing. Yeah, because it is, dude. It was so exhausting, and I walked more than maybe I've ever walked in my whole life. But it was. They know what they're doing. They know how to take you into this little fantasy land.
Oh yeah, because even when you're queuing in like a fantasy land, like you're in this. In fact, it's probably better than the ride in some ways. You see.
Well, here's the thing, Pete. Not to go all braggy on you. All right, but if I get excited about a particular trip or something, I can really quickly obsess over planning it. And so I obsessed over making sure we could actually go on these rides that I wanted to go on and not be, the lines are insane. It's like 2 hours.
Oh, is that right? Well, did you get the fast passes?
The fast passes, dude? Okay, all right. Now,
by the way, I watched a whole documentary on fast passes.
Really?
To which my friend Jay said, why don't they just give fast passes to everyone? It's like, I don't know if that's going to work.
That's not,
yes, fast passes for everybody.
Yeah. And then there's no fast passes.
Yes. Yeah.
There's something about economics in there, but I don't know.
yeah, I don't understand. Yeah.
But now it's so much worse because it's like okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, and then if there's something here that you find interesting, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, no, this is great. I like what at some stage I'll talk a little bit about society and its discontents, but hey, that'll be for half an hour down the line.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yep.
So now what they do is, if you want to, okay, so it's so complicated. It is. Did we talk about this at all?
No.
It is crazy.
But I did watch a 2-hour documentary on fast passes.
Now that
did I mention that?
Do you know what it's called?
No, it was one of these YouTube ones. It was very good, and it was some guy who makes overly long kind of documentaries, video essay type things. Yeah.
Well, I'll check. Yeah, send it to me, because what they do now. Okay, they're called lightning lanes, but there's 2 ways you can get them. One.
Fight to the death.
Fight to the death. Okay. You have to beat up one of the characters and force your way in. And so you can do what's called a Genie Plus service that you can tack on to your ticket price. However, your ticket also has to have a reservation. You can't just have a ticket to the park and they let you in. You have to have a ticket and a ticket that lines up with the reservation. And then on top of that, you need to add the Genie Plus service. If you add the Genie Plus service, it can get you lightning lane access to many rides. However, it can't get you access to all of the rides, especially the most in-demand ones. Those are individual lightning lanes, which you can only book when you are in the park. So you cannot book any lightning lanes until they scan your ticket and they know that you're actually there. And the individual lightning lanes cost like $18 to $20 per thing. So basically, you're just getting nickel and dime the entire time. I don't know if you know this or not. Disney's very expensive, incredibly expensive, bonkers, and it all worked out perfectly to the point that basically we were not in a line at any point.
Is it because of the money we make on the Fundamentalists?
At .com/Patreon.
Yeah.
Which feel free to sign up. It helps us pay for the editing of the thing.
Have we ever taken money out?
No, we've never taken money.
So maybe there's millions in there?
No, Pete, we've never taken money out. Whatever's in, no, yeah. We
You're owed money.
I have to. It's dog-eared or whatever. What is that called?
Dog-eared. Is that? Yeah. Just resting in your account.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a crazy experience.
So if you pay enough, by the way, if you come in with limitless money, can you kind of get to the front of the queue all the time?
Sometimes, but you still got to be there. You got to time it right, and you still don't know what's going to happen. Okay. It is like insane. However, I was so neurotic about it that I was like, "We're gonna get this. We gotta get in the park. Come on, let's do this." Right? And it was super easy. And the trick is to go in the morning. But anyway, who cares? Yeah. The point being, Rise of the Resistance is the greatest ride I've ever been on.
Oh, by the way, I have heard the podcasts about things like tips for things like Disneyland do very well, so maybe that's where the direction we should go, because you obviously know the tips.
Now I know. Yeah. I know. There's one tip, and that's just spend more money than you could possibly imagine spending on anything, and you will have the most luxurious, fun, magical time.
Or the tip, just don't go. Just
stay home and cope with actual existence.
Yeah. But your favorite ride was? Did you mention it there?
Look, man, I don't know if anyone's going to find this interesting at all, but I will say that Star Wars Rise of the Resistance is hands down the greatest ride I've ever been on. It blew me away.
Wow. Just the technology?
Technology and the immersiveness. I'm going to nerd out here on you for a second, Pete, okay? I like Star Wars.
Okay. Even the shitty, all the ones that happened after Return of the Jedi?
No, and that's a lot of what the park is based on, is kind of the newer movies.
Okay, yeah.
And no, I'm not super into those movies. However, the lore of it and kind of, I watched Kenobi. I didn't like it very much, but Mandalorian, love all that. Original movies, love them. Rogue One, loved it. Great stuff. Sentimentally attached, nostalgic, wonderful things. But the cool thing, have you been there since they did the Star Wars land?
No.
All right. So
because I'm not a child.
Because you're not a child. See, that is such a not fair thing to say. There's very rarely a child in Disneyland that is not accompanied by at least one adult. Okay, so but what they do for this land is there's no signage for it. They don't tell you where, like, oh, Galaxy's Edge is this way, because the whole idea is that it's an immersive place, that these spaceships have landed here. Now, you can, childlike or not, seeing the Millennium Falcon in
that's
person
pretty cool.
Is pretty cool. And there's always little, TIE fighters. And so basically,
it's a full size
little park.
Can you go into it? No, full size Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Can you actually go into it?
They make it seem like that if you do the ride, but no, you don't actually go to it. It's a big old prop. But it makes it. They do a great job. Okay, I will say that.
Mhm.
But the cool thing is, there's no Star Wars merch. You don't see the Star Wars logo anywhere. The what they're called cast members at Disneyland. They are basically in character, and then all the shops and stuff are selling things that they would be selling in a Star Wars line. So if you get a toy, it's based in the Star Wars line, and they're all like, there's no when you walk in, it's not like welcome to Star Wars. Like they act like it's just a thing that you can pass through. Very cool. Rise of the Resistance, greatest ride.
Did
of
you
all time.
fight Darth Vader?
I saw Kylo Ren, and we had some words. Yeah.
Oh, you did.
And he was for some reason they kept talking to the children instead of me. But for what I saw, it was pretty great. And the problem is because we did it in the morning. If you want to talk about escapism, getting up at 8 a.m. and walking into a Star Wars land and then having to like fight off the Empire and be rescued by the Resistance
when you're drunk
is quite I mean, or hungover, but and that's the thing too. Disneyland doesn't have any basically nowhere you can get drinks.
What about the hotel?
Yeah, but it's there's like one bar and it's not open very much.
Okay,
like, they don't open until super late, so it was very just like truly they force you into this California adventure. However, everywhere you can walk around, beer, whatever, cocktails. Anyway, we got into the cantina, the Star Wars cantina, pretty quick.
I saw a picture of you in there. I think it was the cantina.
Mm-hmm. we sat down, dude, with the saddest people I have ever seen in my life, and we managed to get like the reservations probably like 10:30 or something, and do the walk-up list, and we were able to. Everything worked really smoothly.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this way too much. This is brilliant. I feel like I'm there. This is great. Keep going.
The drinks are.
You can drink there?
Yeah, that's one of the like 2 or 3 areas in Disney you can drink. All right. And then I got us reservations for a restaurant called Blue Bayou, which is part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. We've passed through it, but it's a nice restaurant, and that was a pleasant experience. And they give you like a drink there or whatever. But the Star Wars drinks are Star Wars themed, and there's an android that functions as a DJ the entire time, and all across the ceiling is containers of Star Wars mythological animals breeding, like aquariums, basically. Filled with just the saddest families in the world, just the most exhausted people, and it was so wonderful. So we had a drink there, left, did Rise of the Resistance, incredible experience, did a bunch of other rides. Splash Mountain. Here's the thing with Splash Mountain. You know what Splash Mountain is?
I think the secret's in the title.
Yeah, there you go. It's called context clues.
Yeah.
I got sat in the front, and the children got sat in the back. So that means because it's a log flume, I apparently was maybe the heavier person on the ride. I got more soaked than I've ever been soaked on any water ride in my life. It felt aggressive and it felt personal, and I was offended by it. And it was a wonderful experience. And now I'm still trying to readjust back to life and be like, what all happened? So
yeah, wow, very good.
Have you done anything regarding escapism lately, Pete? Anything at all? Have you gotten out of here?
Yeah, can I?
That's up to you.
Well, I'm happy to.
No. I mean, yeah, maybe. That's up to you.
No.
I'm keeping the podcast entertaining. I'm really riding on a unicycle here.
You've done a very good job.
Yeah. So, what do you think about escapism?
Okay. Yeah. So, that's it. Yeah. When I'm thinking about that, obviously, good old Freud, Dr. Freud, that Sigmund, good old Sigmund, and his famous book Civilization and Its Discontents, which basically argues that civilization is inherently discontent. To be human, to be part of civilization, is to be inherently dissatisfied to some extent. It's ontological. It's part of reality itself.
Why would you build a civilization if you were
exactly? Well, that's it. Very good point. The name for that in anthropology is the incest taboo, which is
the incest taboo.
Yeah, the incest.
Why
taboo.
do you gotta make it perverted immediately? I'm talking about Disney.
Yes. Well, yeah, the incest taboo. It names the reality that you can't stay at your mother's breast privately enjoying. You have to go out into the world and find a substitute enjoyment.
Yeah.
And be public and become and enter into civilization. So That's why you will never find a civilization that doesn't have the incest taboo. That's why it's universal. You cannot find a civilization without the
Yeah.
incest taboo. Basically, without the thing of you cannot stay at your mother's breast. You have to move from private enjoyment to public enjoyment and to substitutionary enjoyment. But then that means that we're all marked by, you know, they call it an analysis castration. The child is frustrated. The frustration becomes privation. The privation is experienced as castration, which ultimately means.
Was that a poem? That was beautiful.
Was that good?
That sounded like a little rap.
Oh yeah, no way.
Yeah, it was nice.
Analysis philosophy rap. Maybe we should go into
castration, frustration.
Or frustration, privation, castration.
Yeah,
that's it. So the child's frustrated at the mother's breast because it's not always there. Then the privation of love, and then the castration where it realizes it can't always get the love of the other. There's something missing that they can't get the love.
And where does Mickey Mouse fit into this?
Well,
I think I know.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, it's a return of the return to the repressed.
Yeah, well, you know what? I suppose you could say it is an imaginary return to the breast is maybe Mickey Mouse is kind of. So I was thinking the reason why I was saying this is escapism. One way of thinking of escapism is what we do to try to avoid the dissatisfaction of civilization by going into an imaginary world without antagonism, where things are simple.
Yes.
And things are, yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Is that why? Okay, so you're saying going to Disney, Mickey, all this stuff is going back to the Freudian mother's breast, the place of comfort, the private enjoyment, right?
Yeah, fantasized private enjoyment that never really existed, but we think it did retroactively.
Is that why Mickey's ears are so big and round?
Oh.
Welcome to the Fundamentalists.
I wonder whether there's lots of very maternal imagery to lots of things that are whether it's McDonald's or
what is it? Mobile.
Mickey Mouse.
The logo of Mobile, I've heard, is a sexual innuendo.
Is that right?
And all that? Yeah.
Because M's are very kind of obviously have a breast-like look to them.
Well, I think it's the red O and all that. I don't know if it's a breast thing, but it seems. I don't know.
No, I was thinking of the breast thing with McDonald's and then Mickey Mouse, but not Exxon. I didn't know about that one. Exxon, did you say?
No, Mobile, like the gas station Mobile.
Oh right, what were they trying to go for?
I don't know.
But an anal thing.
Might have been an anal thing, yeah.
All right, okay.
I mean, I don't know if they were trying to go for it.
Yeah.
I know I heard it somewhere, and please don't quote me on it, but because I don't think that any of that made sense. But yeah, all the logos and stuff. Maybe it is.
But then so escapism is in a way with Mickey Mouse and all that shit is maybe a way to.
Well, Mickey Mouse and friends. Okay.
What's that?
It's not Mickey Mouse and all that shit. It's Mickey Mouse and his friends.
And his friends. Is that right? Is that what they say?
No, I don't know. I don't care.
But it's a way you're going into a world where everything's simple, opposition between good and bad. Everything's kind of antagonism is minimized.
Yep.
We all want a little bit of that in our lives, but I suppose escapism is when we try to avoid the antagonisms of life by retreating into a fantasized imaginary world. And I guess things like Vegas and Disneyland and all of that provide a way for us to be able to do that to some extent. Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it, you'd say.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it as long as you don't. The issue for me is that it does tend towards private enjoyment. You kind of it's almost like it's difficult for us to deal with the toxicity of other people, the antagonisms of dealing with real life and all of its discontents. And if we kind of avoid finding pleasure in that antagonism with real life, with the symbolic world, and we start to become fantasists and we kind of retreat into our imaginary, then that is a problem.
This brings up a subject that I hesitate to talk about because it would be not fair for me to not. Well, okay, I'll bring it up with a preface. I, for a pretty long time, I was a Disney kid. You
Yeah.
know, I loved it. I had a
Yeah.
great time, especially having done the goofy stuff and then, being able to.
Were you in a Disney show?
I did the parade once or
Okay,
twice.
but not a TV thing. For some
No, that's
reason.
I did a Nickelodeon commercial.
Okay, okay.
Same idea, but the Nickelodeon's a little cooler. Nickelodeon's got a little edge to them, or at least they did back in my day. Now they don't so much. But anyway,
Were you smoking or something in it?
yeah, oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
hard.
okay.
It was
It was a bit
really
edgy,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
But so I was a Disney person for quite a bit of time. All right, and I still can appreciate it. But boy, I tell you, Pete,
Yeah.
when I was in Disneyland this most recent time, sometimes I guess you get older and the magic that you once thought was so palpable,
Yeah.
you recognize as wholly manufactured, if not a bit propaganda-y.
Yeah.
And there is a level of propaganda in Disneyland, especially like Main Street, that is so undeniable and also so sometimes undeniably enjoyable. Like the image they paint that Walt Disney wanted to paint of America is the most like not reality at all. And the most like, boy, aren't we great? Boy, isn't this great? I don't have a problem with it. However, if you get past a certain age, I guess you kind of go, even if I don't have a problem with it, it's still not. I still can't help but see it a little bit.
Yeah, because this would be my main problem with escapism is that it reduces contradiction to opposition, in the words of Todd McGowan, in that somewhere
Say
like
again,
it reduces contradiction to opposition.
Nice.
So
nice.
what you have in something like Disneyland is a very clean and nice way of understanding reality, where there's goodies and there's baddies, and the baddies are there and we fight the baddies, and here are the goodies, and it creates a very intoxicating view of the world.
Yeah, very intoxicating. Great word choice.
Yeah, but it doesn't reflect anything reality at all. In fact, and the more you think like that, to be honest, for me, the more dangerous it becomes. Like the more you see the world in terms of Disneyland-esque ideology. Yeah.
Okay. So that is the point I was kind of getting at, which I beating around the bush, but Disney, because Grace had a couple moments. I went with someone. I was trying to make sure my partner had a good time at Disneyland.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it seem like, because the truth is, not to give too much information about our dynamic, but she could give a flying F about anything regarding Disney. Like I grew up watching Disney. She grew up watching like Monty Python, which I've never heard of.
Oh, yeah. Monty Python's great. Yeah.
And then she like went into comedy. It's whatever. You can't help everybody, but
Yeah.
she doesn't get that like kind of nostalgic thing, and that's juxtaposed against these people who are like really Disney people. Like you see them, and they are like, dude. Okay. All right. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. I don't know if you know this or not about me, but I can get kind of offended by very small things sometimes. Small injustices that I see in real time that really can affect, that really grinds my gears a little bit. And I saw some people like skipping in line, and I didn't like it, and I thought it was kind of crappy. And they're like adults. It was one thing if it's a kid, whatever.
Oh yeah, no, it would annoy me. Like,
yeah. The problem is they were directly in front of us, and I, it was late in the day, and I was tired, and I started talking about it, and and I was like, I asked when we got on the ride, I was like, I don't want to go with those. I was like, can we get on the next ride? I don't want to get on the ride with those people. And I think they were like giggling about how well they cheated the system, and for some reason it bothered me, and I should have just let it go, as I was told, by Grace. She informed me, like, it's really not a big deal. I was like, yeah, but do people, this is right and wrong. For some reason it was a hill I was going to die on.
Following them home was a little much.
What?
Following them home was a little much.
Exactly. Dude, okay, so there's more to the story.
Okay.
So
more than you can tell on the podcast? No.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't filed charges.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not gonna. I was like, I was like, it's bad. Don't be bad. Don't be rude. Like, we're all in this together. We all know it sucks, and then we're all getting nickel and dimed. Don't cheat the system.
Did they know you were annoyed by like? Were you
Yep.
talking
Yep.
loudly? Yeah, you were like,
Yep.
yeah.
And that's where I went wrong. And then I said, no, I'm not going to get on the ride with these people. It was River Rapids. Okay. I didn't want to be, which is a round tube that you get in that everyone, you have to stare at each other. I was like, I'm not going to stare. I'm not going to sit there and be like, now that I've talked shit about you the entire time, I'm not going to like look at you. And so we ended up getting on the ride with the most Catholic family I have ever met in my life. The most conservative Catholic family that seemed like the dad, no offense, seemed like truly a repressed human being. We started talking, we're having fun. They were so sweet. We had a great time. But they were Disney people. They were Disney to like the
How did you
core.
know they were repressed Catholics? Did they have like crucifixes?
They told us they were Catholics like really early on.
Yeah.
And the kids were like just sad kids, like just really sick. And it was very funny. But then I was like, oh, it's like, this goes back to the last episode of there being a sense of humor that's inherent in the world. But I was like, man, I tried so hard not to be with the people that were being crappy that I got with the people that are too pure and good for me to be able to handle. But they were Disney people that were it made me uncomfortable that they were such Disney. It weirds me out when you get too into Disney.
Like they were wearing what the Minnie Mouse hats.
They might as well have been, and they just knew everything. They'd been here 1,000 times. They were gonna, and they were just very even the posture and everything was very like they were like androids. Like they looked at us like robot. There was not a lot of life behind the eyes. And I'm not coming at Catholics here. This is a specific type of.
They're all religious people. It's not just Catholics.
No, it's not. And please don't think they are Catholic.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Oh yeah.
No, it's really the Disney people, which is its own kind of religion, and it freaks me out.
Yeah, and it is a kind of like religion in its kind of primitive superstitious dimension is all about purity, who's in, who's out, who's clean, who's unclean, who's moral, who's immoral. And primitive forms of religion draw very tight lines about that so that you know what's clean, what's unclean. Bad. And Disney is a type of secular purity culture. Like, I mean, now it's playful, but you're immersed in like, there's the people in black. Right, that's Darth Vader, baddie, yeah,
white good.
Well, yeah, although the white stormtroopers are white, but they're but you can tell, like, there's evil dimensions to them. They even have a Ku Klux Klan kind of vibe to them. But then you've got the goodies, and so there's a way in which it does feel a little bit like a primitive religion.
Just to end this little bit, so I felt kind of bad about people knowing I was upset with their bad behavior. All right. I don't know where the moral line is here. However,
Did they say anything? Did what?
They didn't, but here's the thing, dude. This is the craziest part. The next day, these are big parks.
Yeah.
I made that reservation to do this restaurant at lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the lobby, waiting to be taken to our table. We finally get sat at our table, and Grace goes, did you see that your park nemesis is here? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'd forgotten entirely.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no, the whole group from the River Rapids ride walked in, and they're right beside us. And I was like, what? And she's like, I was like, no, I didn't notice at all. And she was like, well, they clocked you immediately. I was like, oh, man.
Listen, we all have to have a cause. I mean, some people fight for, against war. Some people fight economic disparity.
Some people are against fascism. I don't like when people skip ahead of the River Rapids.
Yeah, listen, man. You all got to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Whatever. I was like, of course, of all the places, and by the way, this is not a restaurant that people frequent. It you have to plan to go to this thing, and it's a tight window to get in. Of course, that's where they show up.
Well, civilization will collapse if people can't queue. That's a very British thing that they knows. And that, by the way, that is the difference between private enjoyment, where your enjoyment is divorced from the enjoyment of everybody else. Queuing is a type of a mutual agreement that we're all castrated.
Yeah.
So whenever you queue, you're like, we're all castrated, we're all somehow dissatisfied a little bit, we all have to do this. Then someone comes along with their private enjoyment who thinks that they're an exception, that they're not
That's
castrated.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna call Grace right now. We're gonna get her on the phone because she brought up a really good point, which is like we're all getting we're all getting so screwed over here, like financially, that like who cares if one person like gets it? And I was like, but it's not hurting the company. I was like, you're only just taking other people's spots, like, and then that's not, you know. And I was like, it was just a bunch of. I just felt like a little. Dork about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like there is a sense in which if someone's playing loud music in their car, like you're walking down the street and loud music and they've got the window down, sometimes that can be weirdly disturbing because the person's private enjoyment is invading you.
Why do I have to?
Yes, and so
how dare you?
Yes, and like their private jouissance there is invading your space, but also someone skipping a queue, even if it doesn't take much more time of yours because they just did it straight in front of you, doesn't affect you. It's their private enjoyment that's divorced from the public sphere is somehow disturbing. And this is like, without getting on my bandwagon here, but this is the religion of contemporary society. Is there used to be a religion of prohibition, which is we're all castrated except for one exception, usually God or whatever. But there's one exception to the prohibition. But we live today in the God of the demand to enjoy, which is this demand to have pleasure, enjoyment, private enjoyment. And it's everywhere in social media, the demand to enjoy, which is very oppressive. It's a God of the demand to enjoy. And it creates incivility because the more people embrace their private enjoyment, the more it pisses off everybody else, the more jealousies and envies and lack of civility.
But whose fault is that? Is it not like just okay for people to have their private enjoyment, even if it encroaches on other people's? Like, should people? I don't know. Should everyone have a universal rule of keeping your private enjoyment private?
Yeah, but if private enjoyment is a fiction, so it's ultimately doesn't work. Like even if you privately enjoy a computer game and you don't engage with the public, you still probably want, if you get a good score, to share it, right? If there's a sense in which there is no such thing as private enjoyment, the castration, basically the incest taboo is real, right? That you can't privately enjoy. Your enjoyment is always connected to your neighbor. Your enjoyment is always connected to the social world. Then the fiction or the escapism of private enjoyment is a fiction. It doesn't exist. It's not real.
I don't know, man. If I listen to Weezer with other people, I enjoy it a lot less.
But you do talk about Weezer a lot, so you obviously there's a public dimension to it.
Yeah.
If you really loved Weezer privately, we wouldn't know that you're banging on about Weezer all the time.
No, I do enjoy it privately.
Yeah.
I enjoy it privately more than I enjoy it with other people. Because if I listen to it around other people, then they remind me that it's not that good. You heard about the law in Florida that just got passed, my home state?
Oh, no.
It's a new law that you can be ticketed for playing your music too loud in your car.
Oh,
so if other people can hear it, then you can get a ticket for it. Now, this is where we'll get maybe a little bit of a difference. Is I can guarantee you that law will affect certain demographics more than others, and there's no way to prove whatever decibel thing.
Okay, yeah.
And it's gonna have a negative effect, but at the same time, I'm sure everyone's excited about it because everyone loves the idea that you can punish the person that's privately enjoying something that you're not getting a piece of.
But this is like, so that's a great thing. I didn't know about this, but that's a great example of what I'm talking about because technically, right, and there's a great book, The End of Dissatisfaction, about this, Todd McGowan's book, but is that conservatives are generally, a conservative position is one in which they understand very deeply the danger of the God of the demand to enjoy. So within progressive and liberal circles, there is there is a real demand to enjoy, right? Conservatives are generally the ones who say no, there needs to be prohibitions. So, for example,
Yeah.
sex should be
Tap the
within
brakes.
marriage. What's that?
Tap the brakes.
Tap the brakes. Yes,
Contain it.
yes. Tap the brakes. So, and
Sex within marriage, rap music within the car.
yes.
That knowing.
So now, but the thing isn't where I disagree is, but I would say that like conservatives here are correct in the sense that they are correctly perceiving a issue with the God of the demand to enjoy. However, it's appropriated. So basically, what happens within conservatism is generally because you see this like with the Jesus freaks, right? So if you go back to the 1960s, all the acid heads all became Jesus freaks, right? They all retroactively
Not
sought
all
a
of them, but
prohibition.
a lot of them, right?
What's that? A lot of them, yeah. And culturally speaking, the acid heads became a very strong movement towards prohibition. What I would say is the society of the demand to enjoy always creates a reactionary attempt to put in new prohibitions. So whenever you have the demand to enjoy, it creates so much anxiety within society that a nostalgic or a fascistic response always is generated. So in any society, the demand to enjoy, you will find
an undercurrent of
and not even an undercurrent. It will
or an answer.
An answer, yeah. And what you'll see, and you'll see this in America in the next, I would say, 8 years, you will see a return to the the god of prohibition, right? You'll see.
Oh, you think?
Oh yeah.
You think we're not headed there?
Yeah, but it is. Then this is where I would like. I'm very different from identitarians. Is that is the product of progressivism. Progressivism creates its reactionary response. Now there is
I don't know if it creates it. Okay, I don't know if it creates it.
Creates it. Yeah, well, that's why I say because it creates so much anxiety.
It's like a chicken and egg kind of deal.
No, so I would say that the more that you see others, now not really, but the more there's a demand to enjoy, and you see, for example, on social media enjoyment, and you see other people enjoying, the more you see private enjoyment, the more you can't deal with the toxicity of the other, etc., the more likely you are going to be ultimately to respond to a new prohibition, a new conservatism. So new conservatism kind of, I would say, always results because it's a way of it's a way of containing anxiety. The anxiety of enjoyment will always be found in new prohibitions, new laws. There is an answer, but
I'll have to listen to this episode again myself to see what I think about it. But
okay, yes. But the answer for
I like what you're saying.
Okay, yeah. The answer, and this is why I'm not a progressive, whatever, is the answer is that everyone's castrated, including reality itself. There is no exception to the prohibition. So the conservative God is the one. God is accepted from the incest taboo. God is the one who is whole, complete, enjoys without limit. And we, when we get to heaven or whatever, or create the new society, we can enjoy entirely. So we can get rid of the incest taboo. Then there is the God of the demand to enjoy, which is no, we can all enjoy, we can all have what we want, which creates anxiety. The third position, which I think is the right position, is no, there is prohibition or there is antagonism built into reality itself. And once you accept that and that there is no uncastrated other in God or ideal state or whatever, you're freed from fascism and you're freed from the God of the demand to enjoy.
I just wanted to talk about Star Wars. Okay. But now, since we're on this tangent, something that has been, and I think I followed most of what you're saying, but something that I've noticed, and I'm not saying this is,
and you don't have to agree with me. You can be wrong if you want.
Oh, I have to understand you before yes. I can disagree with you. But I've noticed this past month. Maybe it's just me noticing. My attention is on it, so maybe it's not, really an objective observation. But the amount of, I would use the word reactionary sentiments toward things like Pride Month or Pride parades and all that stuff seems to me to be insane. Like the amount, it's like, first of all, who gives a crap? Second of all, I've seen these things, and I know these people, and they're fun and wild and crazy and weird, and I think it's wonderful. But there is such a weird. It feels like a resurgence of this kind of conservatism, basically being like you can't. It's like everyone woke up one day was like, "What? There's drag queens?" And it's like, who? This has been going on forever, and somehow right now there seems to be just this real focused hatred of people, you could say, playing their music too loud in their car,
Yes.
going on a parade and being drags and
Yes. But
going wild, and
yes,
people
but
go,
if you're a dialect, yes, but if you're a dialect, like this is where like it all makes total sense from a psychoanalytic perspective. Is that and this is where I have to resist painting one side as morally bad and the other as morally good. What you're
this
seeing is
this is your rise of the resistance.
yeah, no, this is where you go like if we live in the age of the demand to enjoy, and by that I mean that within social media and within even pride parades and all of that, people pretend to be having excessive enjoyment, and I use the word pretend because of course no one is, right? But there is
I don't know.
yeah, but let's
I
go
don't
with
know about
go with
that.
this theory for a second. Yeah,
Okay.
that there's a certain sense in which in order to sell products or to kind of attack the other or to whatever, we engage in certain basically where it used to be where adverts pretended to enjoy, right? But now in social media we pretend to enjoy. So you go onto social media, people, I see it even here in this apartment, you go downstairs, people are
Adverts
creating,
still pretend to enjoy them.
well yes they do, but they've just also outsourced it to people who create their own adverts and
You do
pretend
our
to
job.
enjoy. Yeah, so everyone's doing it now, whereas I said it was constrained to advertising. So with global capitalism, basically with global capitalism, this command to enjoy is globalized, right? Now if that's the case, which if that's the case, that there is a certain kind of like within society, um this super egoic injunction to enjoy, then it's obviously makes sense that there will be a reactionary return to the god of prohibition. Like that just always happens. Yes. It has to happen by definition.
Okay, I get on board with that.
And but if that's the case, then you go like they're dialectically intertwined. They're absolutely interconnected. It's not like, why is this happening in response to this? It's going like, oh no, they're dialectically completely intertwined. You have to enter into this psychoanalytic insight in order to get to a third stage.
I still go back to the chicken and egg thing, though. I don't necessarily. I mean, yeah, you can look at it as they're all, that side's reacting to that side, and that side is reacting to that side. But it is intertwined. It's like a little DNA strand, and but at the same time,
but at the very beginning of the chicken and egg, because chicken and egg is not actually a chicken and egg, because you go chicken and egg is like, oh yeah, the egg comes from the chicken comes from the egg, but from an evolutionary perspective, you can answer the thing. In the Freudian thing is like the progressivism and reactionism are chicken and egg, but if you go right back to the beginning and say that discontent is inherently part of reality itself, then go, oh right, so what happens at first? Society experiences everyone's castrated, with one exception being God. And then the exception becomes the rich person, and then the exception becomes your neighbor, and then the exception becomes like everyone's enjoying except for you. Then we enter into, contemporary era, which is the God of the demand to enjoy, which then generates a nostalgic, sometimes fascistic return to the God of the demand to enjoy. Hold on, yeah.
I just wanted to talk about Star Wars. I'm losing the. Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
Okay.
Here we go. So, yeah, all right, fine. But it almost sounds like that argument almost sounds escapist. It sounds like a way to fly above the contradiction rather than be within it. Because as long as you keep going, oh, obviously this is going to happen for this thing, or this is going to happen, then it allows you to have a
no. So I would say within the God, right? Very good. But within the God of the prohibition, right? Which, and by the way, so just to reiterate, like when I say the God of prohibition, what I mean is society that is based on the idea that we all orchestrate it. We all have to sacrifice in order to be, there's a sacrifice we all participate in, except for one exception, right? The God of prohibition is, Freud called it the primordial father. There's one exception, and today we might go, some rich person or whatever, but traditionally Elon Musk, whatever, right? But traditionally, God is the exception, and also heaven. When we get to heaven, we all, whatever. Then, when you move to the God of the demand to enjoy, you move into this idea that we can get over our prohibition, we can enjoy to excess. For me, both of those are escapes from the truth. So in the first, it's like I can get to heaven and then everything will be good. In the second, if only I had what my neighbor had, if only I had the lifestyle they had, the money they had, the person they had, then that'd be good, right? What I'm saying is, when you realize that discontent is woven into the very fabric of reality, you can't escape. There is no escapism. What you have to do is say, we work with the discontent that we have. We try to make life as good as possible, but there is no exception. There is no exception to the rule of trauma. Trauma is part of being human.
I guess I hear you saying it, and I think it's a very good point. I just wonder why it always ends up being against the same people over and over and over again. Like, you're playing your music's too loud in your car, and you're blasting your bass and whatever, and people are gonna be upset by that. And that's a demographic, and then the gays doing pride that's too much, and it always ends up being the same people. But I know you don't want to go into any kind of identitarian thing. It's just interesting that it always seems to be certain identifiable groups.
Well, that's because people, like it's the sad thing about humans is that
they're racist and shitty.
We, not they, we are racist and shitty. Like when identitarians,
we're racist.
Yes, yeah. Like even saying, you're implying that black people are kind of uncivil, which that's.
Wait, what?
Well, by playing their music too loud. Is that
no, I'm saying that it's perceived as that.
Okay.
And I think that they're codifying certain laws to make it so that.
Because the Irish can be crazy. See, when the Irish get drunk, they're loud and boisterous. Like I don't think any race of people has.
Yeah, there's no laws going against that are going to hyper target Irish people.
Yeah.
I'm talking about embedded systemic racist stuff.
Yeah, but and that for me, right, and that is true.
But that would go to the identity. You shy away from that, where I'm like, I get what you're saying. I think it's true.
But it's very but you've got to get to a structural. Like, so for example, whenever you hear something like that law, like structurally speaking, you go, okay, what is that law attempting to do? And that law is attempting to constrain the anxiety of a perceived jouissance of the other. Like that's what it is. Like you can go to a very superficial level. Like if you read Huffington Post or the New York Times or something, you're going to get a very different reading. But if you academically speaking, you go to what is underlying it. Now it's not that the Washington Post doesn't have an insight, but it doesn't have an insight.
I think if you go to an academic history department, we found it. His story. You'd find in American history, that these things aren't just purely structurally psychoanalytic. They are, of course, they fit within that. Perfect, dude. However, I have a difficult time thinking that it's just purely all contradiction and we're all contradict. Like it seems like a very easy answer when the history of the nation has a tendency to.
Well, I agree with that. Like, there's always be a concrete, imaginary representation of these things. So it might be the Jewish community, it might be the black community, it might be the West community. It might be a scapegoat. There's always a scapegoat. So that happens. But what I'm saying is the scapegoat is what's universal. Who embodies the scapegoat does fluidly change. That's not something that's like what's universal is the scapegoat mechanism. It's not universal as in universal to escapism is the scapegoat mechanism, but historically, contingently, who occupies that does change. You know,
we're pretty good. I think we're pretty consistent here. I think in this nation, at least, we're doing pretty good keeping it the same people over and over again. It seems that way anyway. I mean, I don't know. It blows my mind that it always, and it doesn't feel to me like these things are constant. Like, it doesn't feel, the ebbs and flows that happen are wild to me. And I don't know, I'm not a sociologist, I don't know what the cause and effect is. But there seems to be some kind of push and some sort of panic right now that really confuses me. And I know that I can see how it fits in the psychoanalytic framework, but I can also see that it seems to be just a panicky mentality from a lot of conservative folks who can't handle the idea that society is different than what they want it to be.
Yeah, but what I'd say is it's always been that. What I'd say you're doing is non-dialectic. You're seeing conservatives not as that. You're seeing that position not as an eruption that arises out of a position. You're seeing it as like you're kind of going like, why is it certain people think like this? But if one thinks dialectically, if you go like, if for example you go that a society of the demand to enjoy always retroactively creates a society of prohibition, then you see how conservatives and progressives are dialectically related. Like you can see, and the only reason why I'm saying that is like I do see. Well, I've said this for years. You know this. Like I think America is in a very bad way, right? And I've said that for years. Okay. And I think it
bears repeating. I would say.
But it bears repeating, you know. But it's not because somehow I had a crystal ball. It's just very obviously there's going to be it's just very obvious. Is once you understand how this structure works, it's really obvious what's going to happen, and it's not pretty. Yeah. And until we are able to, until we're able to kind of offer a genuine, and for me, what it is a properly, I would say, like understanding that everything is divided. Until we can kind of like at a structural level, a political level, express that, we're going towards utter civil war.
We are, but I would say that I agree, but that is an idea that I don't think can be processed until people's like material conditions are improved on a very broad scale. And it seems to me that that's not going to happen anytime soon, because there's no way anybody can go, oh, well, I see, we're all just contradictions and everything is when like everything's falling apart around them. So until the system can change in a way that benefits people, then we're going to keep having all these times, all these news articles. Does it feel a little crazy? I mean, are you like keeping up on all the things? It feels exhausting. It's like every day, my God.
Yeah.
What today?
Yeah. It is exhausting, but as I say, in terms of the cultural sphere, I see it as equally bad on both sides. Like I see that. I like. It's funny if you watch YouTube, you can get caught up in like if you watch only one set of videos, you see the world in one way. One set of videos, the other way. Doing this Tammy Faye documentary is really interesting because I see the madness of both sides. Because I'm looking at kind of like how these two worldviews see each other and how they're completely divorced. They think they're divorced from each other. So, but for me, they're completely interconnected. Like, yeah. And there are exceptions. I think there are some people out there in YouTube, for example, who are doing very positive work, but there's not many. Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier today. It's like, man, I'm super into Sam Cedar. I really like Sam Cedar.
Oh yeah.
And then you're more of a Jimmy Dore fan.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. Sam Cedar. Yeah, that's a fun difference. Well, this is interesting.
I think it says a lot.
We should. This is definitely. We're gonna, and this is our attempt to cross the divide because we are very close friends, but have a slightly different reading of contemporary cultural events, and we should explore that more in this podcast.
Well,
in a way which hopefully we don't get cancelled in the process.
Oh, never mind. I guess I'll tell you something offline. All right. Escapism. What do you think of the baby?
Oh yeah, in moderation. Escape in moderation. But
you know why you're right? Because I've done so much escapism over the past 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. I don't know if
you got to escape from escapism.
Yeah. I need a vacation. Yeah. Good time.
What's your takeaway?
I gotta listen to it again to gather what you said, but I'm not gonna listen to it again. Yeah. I've enjoyed this episode very much.
Yeah, this is fun. I feel like we're touching on things.
We're touching on it because everything is so right under the surface right now that it's very difficult to. We could have done a podcast on Furbies and it still would have ended up talking about some of the bigger issues that are going on. So I would just say that my goal is to just kind of keep paying attention. But my goodness, to be honest with you, I am not optimistic at all about the trajectory that this country is headed in, and it saddens me and makes me upset and a little nervous.
And by the way, one of the reasons why I think the conservative response will always fail, and this is important, I maybe say this, is that the conservative response, you cannot go back to the god of prohibition, because if you notice this about religious leaders, they'll say things like you should have sex within the confines of marriage because that's what makes it more fun. In other words, even whenever conservatives try to enact prohibitions, it's in submission to the god of the demand.
It's still in the context of there will be more later. And it'll be even better.
And the issue for me then is that we genuinely live in the age of the gods of the demand to enjoy. You can't escape it. You cannot go back. So even conservatives and intelligent conservatives all understand this. So any intelligent conservative is basically saying, no, this god of the demand to enjoy, pure enjoyment and excess creates anxiety, incivility, creates this increase of private enjoyment, diminishes and frays social bonds, all of that. So any intelligent conservative will say that. But where I think they go wrong is in a nostalgic attempt to return to prohibition, which then always is in danger of becoming kind of this very perverse nostalgia and fascism.
And the return to whatever they're thinking of was never really a thing.
Yeah, well, although I think before globalized capitalism, it was possible to have a society of a prohibition where literally you could not be constrained by happiness, where you could literally go, no, we're all in this together. Like I do think there were times in the past where there were greater social bonds and all that. I just don't think you can go back now. The only way is to go forward, and the way to go forward is to realize that even the people who look like they're enjoying aren't. So, for example, first it's very good for conservatives to see that the steaming enjoyment that they feel is going on all around them, the success of enjoyment of, say, people not working and getting free money, or coming from their terrible country to this amazing country to get free healthcare. You don't get free healthcare, but free everything. But
that's a very
But or these people like the conservative, the fundamentalist preacher who's talking about the pride parades where everyone's having sex. Yeah, which is a veiled, thinly.
They don't recognize that those people are also just people, and that they also have a contradiction within them. They themselves aren't walking around every day going, "I'm living in cloud."
Yes, of course. But you can hear within the fundamentalist pastor that there's a jealousy. There's a jealousy of the pure excess of jouissance that this other is having, and for me,
there should be sometimes.
What's that?
There should be a little jealousy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But the truth
sometimes
is,
other people are better at having fun.
No, but the beautiful thing is, and this is again Tammy's great thing, is the beautiful thing is when people get together and they go, well, of course people are having fun sometimes. We all have a bit of fun. Life is full of, has fun moments, and for some more than others. But where social solidarity comes in is whenever people can get around a table and go, yeah, but you know what? I'm having relationship difficulties. I have sexual difficulties. I've got loads of money and still am terrified that I'm going to lose it all. I have a relationship with someone that I really desire and I'm terrified they're going to leave me, or I can't do this or I can't do that. Like, and whenever I realize that the other has struggles just like me, it creates social solidarity, and I think it creates the basis for a healthier society and a society in which we can kind of create more equality. Anyway, that's my argument.
It's a great argument, everybody. Thank you so much.